Hey, good morning, folks. It's Pastor Stephen back again with another No Frills daily devotional. And today's topic is worship part two. All right. And so we're going to be diving in again on this concept of worship. And if you watched the previous episode, I was talking about kind of the what behind worship, like what in the world is worship. All right. And I defined it as this. It's the act of giving someone or something all of my attention, all of my focus, all of my devotion. All right. That's what worship is. And I talked a little bit about how sometimes we're not just worshiping God, sometimes we're worshiping other things. And sometimes when I'm at church and it looks like I'm worshiping God, I'm most likely worshiping myself because I'm giving myself all my focus, attention, and devotion when all I'm thinking about is how tired I am or how bored I am or how I don't like this song, I don't like Gertrude's hair, I don't like the message, whatever, right? And so worship is giving something or someone, and hopefully it's God, all of your attention, your focus, and direction. It's meant to get your spirit. I've talked about the 4 layers in a previous episode called the spiritual connection, but it's meant to get all 4 layers focused and directed toward God. My spirit, my soul, my mind, and body. It's meant to get my all 4 of those layers focused and directed toward God. All right. And so the next question that I want to cover is why, Stephen? Why? Why should I worship? Why are you making such a big deal about this? All right. Well, number one, okay, this discipline or this habit or this pathway is very key for enhancing or increasing our spiritual connection. Okay. And I'm not going to get too much into that. If you want more on that, please check out an episode that I did about spiritual connection. All right. But it's very key. Worship is very key for increasing. I was created with spirit. God is spirit, and worship helps get those two things connected. It bridges the gap between me and God. It helps to connect me to Him. All right. And so worship is key for spiritual connection. Another reason why worship is important or why we should worship is because we reflect what we worship. All right. I'm just going to sit on that for a little bit. We reflect what we worship. I remember having a conversation with my kids one time and asking them that question, right? Like, do you think we reflect what we worship? And they were a little bit like, why are you asking us that question, Dad? All right. And thinking about just how you can tell by looking at someone what they tend to worship in their life, right? You can spot a meth addict in the crowd, right? Okay, you just can. You can spot that person. You can spot them because they look like a meth addict, right? They reflect what they're worshiping. Okay, you can spot a prostitute in a crowd. Okay, why? Because they reflect what they worship. You can spot a Packer fan in the crowd, right? Because they reflect what they're worshiping. And I'm sorry if I lumped a Packer fan in with a prostitute and a meth addict. All right, I didn't mean to do that. But anyway, hopefully you get the idea. Sorry, Packers fans. All right, but you get the idea. Hopefully that we tend to reflect what it is in our life that we worship the most. You can tell if somebody worships money. You can tell what people worship. You can tell if somebody worships body image, right? You can tell what we worship. And so we were created. The reason I'm saying all this is because we were created in God's image. Genesis chapter 1, I think it's verse 26 or something like that. But we were created in God's image, okay? But here's the deal. Oftentimes, that's not the image that our lives bear. Why? Because we're worshiping the wrong thing. I'm going to take you to a text here. This is Paul writing in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, and I'm going to read to you verses 17 through 18. And Paul is talking about this concept of worship, and he says this, "Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. And we, who with unveiled faces all reflect the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his likeness with ever increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, which is the Spirit. And what is Paul talking about here? He's talking about this concept. God is Spirit and you have a spirit. And when you worship him, then when your life is devoted to him and your attention, thoughts, everything, will, mind, body, spirit, whatever, soul, all that stuff is focused and directed towards him, what happens is you, as a process, begin to look more and more and more like him. You were created in God's image. God is spirit. You have a spirit. And when you worship God, your spirit gets connected to God. And what happens is transformation takes place. And it's a process of transformation. It's not just a one-hit wonder thing. This is a process that your life goes through, that you begin to look more and more like Jesus, the more and more in your life that you worship Jesus. You're being transformed increasingly, okay? And so I've talked about this in, I think, the previous episode that I did on worship, but it's not about you, okay? Worship isn't about you. And oftentimes we make church and everything that we do, we make our life so much more about us, okay? And if you don't want to look like you so much anymore and you want to look like God, you got to stop making life and everything about you, okay? And so, but it's not for you, okay? But it's not about you, but it is for your benefit as we engage in this spiritual act of worship. What's great is that we begin to reflect and look more and more and more like Jesus. All right, so you've given me the what, Stephen? You've given me the why. How then? How am I supposed to worship God? Well, worship, you got to remember, it's a lifestyle. Worship is meant to be a lifestyle. It's not just meant to be a Sunday morning or a Saturday evening thing, okay? Worship is meant to be a lifestyle. And so answer this question then. So if you're asking me, how do I worship? Okay, answer this question. What helps you the most in your life? What helps you to get your mind, body, soul, and spirit focused and directed toward God? Okay? And the answer to that question is going to be what helps you to worship. And so it can be church, but it doesn't have to be church, and it shouldn't just be church. Worship is meant to be a lifestyle, because if I just depend on church to be my act of worship, I've got 6 other days and lots of other hours in my life that I'm spent worshiping something else, right, other than God. And so it's meant to be a lifestyle. So what helps you to get your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit focused and directed toward God? It can be church. It shouldn't just be church, right? Think about the other disciplines I've talked about, the other pathways, right? Fasting, Sabbath, prayer, scripture can help me to get focused and directed toward God. Walking in the country, okay, for me, helps me to get focused and directed toward God. Sitting by a lake can get you focused and directed toward God. Serving can get you focused and directed toward God. Mowing your lawn can get you focused and directed toward God. This is meant to be a lifestyle so that you and I can partake in the process that Paul's writing about in 2 Corinthians here, that we are being transformed daily into the likeness of him who created us. Hey, you guys, have an awesome, awesome day and be blessed.